So thank you guys for coming, we appreciate it. We're here tonight to discuss an upcoming vote which would release the town of Vernon from our Brattleboro Union High School District 6. So I see we have a representative here from the
If you'd like to join.
From the Vernon board, so so
Enough room, we can all be up here.
they will assist me in this presentation, but so we are members of the Act 46 study committee, and part of the study to move forward with a consolidation of our school districts would involve this releasing of Vernon from the District 6. And the reason for that is because Vernon is unique from the rest of us, specifically in their school choice option in their town. And so by consolidating with the rest of us, they would essentially be losing that school choice option. And so they have requested that they be released from the district so that they can fulfill the requirements of Act 46 individually in a different way than what we're pursuing. So this is kind of stage one for the Act 46 consolidation effort. So all registered voters in the towns that currently make up the High School District 6, Guilford, Putney, Dummerston, and Brattleboro, as well as Vernon, would need to vote to allow them to release. Now, Vernon already had that vote, which is why we're here now, and faced with this next stage of the vote for the remaining towns. Why are we voting? I guess I just covered that. Vernon wants to maintain their 50-plus year history of grades 7 through 12 school choice. Under Act 46, they would not be able to do that and stay a member of the WSESU and BUHS District 6. In August 2016, their town voted in favor of leaving the district, which was step one. And now step two is for the rest of us remaining towns to hold the same vote to release them. Why are we doing it now? I guess in my introduction I covered a lot of this, but so Act 46 does not allow school choice towns and non-school choice towns to merge together and be in the same district. So because of that, Vernon would either have to give that up or separate and go on their own. So they have opted to go on their own. What is the financial implication to taxpayers? That's the big question.
Mike, since you were part of the referral arrangement, would you mind covering this subject?
Sure. One of the things that we were very concerned about were the implications of Vernon pulling out of the district, how it would financially impact the other towns. So Frank Rucker did the research on it and did some modeling and found that the cost would be kind of a wash. There would be really nothing there. And one of the concerns was the debt service on the building. And Vernon has part ownership in the building. We would relinquish our ownership. And at that time, the debt service and the relinquishing of ownership makes a wash. So there's not any real impact to the other districts. And Beth, I think, has covered our motivation. The first choice that we had was when Act 46 started, we were part of the merger process, and then the attorneys for the agency came out with a ruling that we could not be a choice town and exist with a district that did not tuition. And that kind of threw a wrench into everything. We hadn't anticipated that. We anticipated we would continue with what we've been doing with Supervisory for 50 years. So we voted to withdraw from the process, which created a lot of issues for the other towns, something we didn't want to do. And at this point, we don't want to create a hardship for the other towns by being an anchor or dead weight to the system. If they want to advance and do something that is a benefit for their towns, we don't want Vernon to be a roadblock. And along that, we've talked with Ron and other members. And what would be Vernon's intention would be to strike out on our own, but then contract with the WSESU for all the same services. Because I must say, as far as working with the WSESU, Vernon has been satisfied with what goes on in the SU. It's I think, the most effective SU in the state. So we didn't see a need until this legal ruling came down to leave the district. But if we want to maintain what we have in Vernon, we need to do that, unless there are some changes in Montpelier to legislation, which we're anticipating will happen, but you never know what's going to happen in Montpelier. It could stay exactly the same. So we have to be prepared for that.
I guess I feel like down the road, I'm super I feel down the road that if the merger goes through, that we're contracting with Vernon and we're able to change, modify the law, they would then become part of the merged district.
Right, we can certainly reapply to get back in.
Yeah. But this slide is really important, that didn't want to have a burden on other towns' taxpayers or the implication to the Vernon taxpayers. So Paul Giuliani, who has worked on these issues in the past, worked very closely with our business administrator, Frank Rutgers, like I said. And it's an agreement that both Vernon and all of the other towns have signed, so it's good for everyone.
All right, so will Vernon still send students to BAMS, BUHS, and the Windham Regional Career Center? And Mike, you can step in if you want to, but currently Vernon sends about 80% of their students to our middle school, high school, and career center, and similar levels are expected down the road. I don't think that Vernon's intending to pull all of their students out of our schools.
No, historically, 75-80% of Vernon students have attended Brattleboro. And it's been for that unique 20-25% of kids don't fit in a larger environment, they need something different. So they opt for a choice situation. But there is nothing in the history that would indicate that that would change. Unlike if another town, we won't use one of our towns, we'll say someone like a Williston decided to become a choice town and pulled out of their school, that would make a huge difference because those would be new students leaving. What we see here is the students that have currently been going other places will continue to do so, but by and large, there's a great deal of satisfaction with the high school, so we see no reason to believe that that would change.
And those students would then pay tuition to our high school, middle school, or career center to attend.
So rather than an assessment that all of our towns would succeed, they would be paid direct tuition.
Right. One of the trade-offs with that too is once we did that, we would no longer have representation on the high school board.
Yeah. And I think that leads us into this slide. Will Vernon have a voice in the BUHS District 6 board? No, that they would lose that seat on the table and they would just be tuitioning their children.
Right, but I must commend the SU. I think towns that do tuition kids, from what I've heard, towns that do tuition kids to Brattleboro, while they don't have official representation, certainly have a voice that is shared with the SU. So Vernon would not be without a voice, but we wouldn't have a vote. And I think that's the big difference. And I do think that's something that people should bear in mind, is that because you don't have a voting member doesn't mean you've lost any rights. People from Dover, they could talk with Ron about what they'd like to see at the school and stuff. And the SU has been receptive to other people.
So how does the vote work on December 13th? So the vote is on December 13th. If the member towns of BUHS District 6 vote yes to allow Vernon's withdrawal, then Vernon will exit our district and pursue other options that would allow it to maintain their school choice. If any one of our towns votes no, then the withdrawal does not go through. So there's 4 towns, Brattleboro, Dummerston, Putney, and Guilford, that need to vote yes in order for this to happen. And if any of them vote no, we would go back to the drawing board and figure out where to go next.
Which, as I said earlier, would be problematic to the other districts because Vernon fully intends to do all it can to keep choice. And we don't know what other legal remedies would have to take place, but it would certainly, I think, be a detriment to the other towns.
So the vote on December 13th, polls are open here in Guilford from 10 to 7 p.m. And for us, the voting location is the Broadbrook Grange. And you can see, we have other information sessions in each of the other member towns. Dummerston tomorrow, Putney on Wednesday, and Brattleboro at Oak Grove on Thursday. So that will conclude the formal presentation, but we're open to any questions or comments that you all may have.
So moving past the vote on the 13th, what happens if Vernon does, like all the towns vote to let Vernon go out on its own? What are the next steps after that? Is there going to be another vote to move forward?
Yeah, so the next vote would be on town meeting day and held via Australian ballot. And there'll be other informational sessions, obviously, before that. But the withdrawal of Vernon would then allow us to move forward with that vote on March 3rd? 7th, March 7th, which would then merge together Putney, Dummerston, Guilford, and Brattleboro.
Can you remind us that, so how, there are a number of years that we have to actually, because this is law that this has to happen, so what is the state's timeline for us?
So we have this year to try to do it. And if we don't, then potentially the state board could just assign the merger.
Okay.
And we've worked really hard over a year on the articles of agreement, which outline all aspects of the merger. And the Agency of Ed has this document. They will finally review it if the Vernon vote is positive and get us ready for the March vote. But if that doesn't go through, the state board will look at these articles, and we would hope do what we were planning to do in terms of the assignment of a supervisory district, and again, let Vernon contract with us. But we have no control over that. So,
the risk is if you've reviewed our articles, there's some specific articles in there that we've spent a lot of time on that are unique to our district. And that we feel really strongly about. And so we're worried about the potential for the state to implement a model that doesn't include those articles. The one that comes to mind the most is our leadership councils, which have been really important to all of us, I think. And it's not something that most districts are doing. And so we would be concerned that the state wouldn't allow us to do that. And so if we control our own destiny, we have those in the articles now, and so that's why, we're hoping that we don't have to get to that point.
And what I was going to suggest after Vernon is voted out, that at some point in, I think it's with January 25th, you're being invited. I don't know if you've gotten the official invitation yet, but you're being invited to meet with the delegation in Montpelier to go over your articles of agreement and kind of lobby for at least the representatives from Windham County to say, we want to move forward in this fashion and make that clear to the Agency of Education. And we'll know that more clearly after the vote to let us out. And for Vernon, letting us out is just one of the hurdles. After we do that, we have to draw up our own plan, which would be the plan that we've worked out with Ron Staley, that we would contract with the supervisory union, but that again has to be approved by the Agency of Ed. So there are a lot of moving parts here, but the first part we have to nail down is to let us out of the district to start with. And then hopefully everyone can move forward in the manner they wish to. And I think Dr. Staley and myself feel that if we're voted out and we petition the state to allow us to contract, there's no logical reason that they would say no. So we're very hopeful that we can move forward and have a clean process. Anything.
It doesn't just have to be about the Vernon vote. Since you're here, if you have questions about the articles or Act 46, we're happy to entertain them. All right.
Oh,
So, when does Act 46 go into effect?
So if we are positive, if we vote positive to allow Vernon out, we progress to the vote in March.
Right.
If we are positive to progress through the vote in March, and again, it's the same thing, all of these member towns have to vote affirmative to move forward with the merger. If that happened, then we would be implementing in July 1st of 2017.
And part of the vote on town meeting day will not only be for the merger, but will also be for members for the new board directors for that. So that happens at the same time. So in essence, that board is convened right after that.
Well, and one thing that has changed probably since the last meeting, we changed the representation numbers, and because there's a lot of debate on if it was, if all of the towns were going to vote on every single board member, and the lawyers came back, and we are actually able to change that, so each individual town will be voting on their own rep. So Brattleboro will have 4 reps that the citizens of Brattleboro will vote on. Dummerston will have 1, Putney will have 1, Guilford will have 1. And then there will be 2 at-large members that every citizen of each town will vote on, and they will vote on only on those 2 at-large members. So I know that there was a lot of concern that Guilford was not going to be able to vote for just theirs. Everybody was going to be voting for Guilford. Now we've got it set that Guilford will vote for just their Guilford rep. So that's something new since our last Act 46 meeting here.
That will conclude our meeting. Yes.
Are the articles online where we can?
They are, if you go to the WSESU website, there's a link to Act 46. It'll have all of our agendas, meeting minutes, and copies of the articles.
And also BCTV has all of our meetings televised, so you can have hours and hours of meeting time.
A viewing pleasure.
Viewing pleasure.
And I would like to thank the study committee. I know Vernon has created some challenges for them, some fairly big challenges, but I would like to thank them for honoring what we want to do and taking us into consideration with the articles and in having people vote to release us. And hopefully that'll be successful so this process can move forward. But again, I do want to thank them because initially I think we shocked the hell out of them when we said we're out of this, and it was kind of a bucket of cold water on a grand plan. So.
thank you all.
Thank you.
So we're gonna go back into our meetings.
I'm excited for